Ilan, this is Osama. Thank you for that. We're approaching the end of our show, but I have a question to follow up on that, if I may, in terms of what Karim asked you, in terms of, because now you're saying, on the one hand, you're saying it's too early to judge the results of I mean, and you're correct to point that it's not just the axis of resistance, there's also the axis of Israeli power and the brutality of the Israelis and what they're doing and what they can do to Lebanon, what they did in Lebanon, what they're doing to Lebanon, what they've done, of course, and what they're doing to Gaza, to the West Bank, and so on and so forth. You have this extraordinary amount of power that they have. On the other hand, and you seem to be suggesting that it's actually a setback. My question is, earlier in the show, maybe I misunderstood you. You said that you felt that we're at the beginnings of the end of colonial Zionism. How do you reconcile these two? I mean, I'm trying to understand how, and in terms of thinking about the future, because you also said something here. I remember when you were giving a talk here at Berkeley, you said something to the effect that shocked some people in the audience, that the future ultimately is there is going to be millions of people living together, Jewish, Muslim, and Christian, in Palestine. And there's a future together at some point. Now, you're a historian, I'm a historian, we're all scholars, but how do we get, I'm just trying to figure out how we go from where we are to that sort of vision that you have, but also how do you reconcile the pessimism of your response to Karim, or the caution, the note of caution, I should say, telling us let's not over analyze or over determine Hamas, Hezbollah, and all these things, because Israel has an enormous amount of military destructive power. You can't discount that. How do you reconcile that with your sense that it's the beginning? You said it's the beginnings of the ends of Zionism, or colonial Zionism, at least.
Yeah. I think I hinted to how I reconcile it when I said that the end of a project like Zionism is one of the worst periods for the colonized people. That I'm sure that Zionism is going to end. I really believe it. I can see the indicators. I really see them clearly. I can see the indicators of the beginning of the end. But as an historian, I know that the beginning of the end can be a decade, 2 decades, even 3 decades. I'm afraid that as an historian, I'm allowed to say it, but as a human being, I don't want to say it. I don't want to be there for 30 years in a situation. And these 30 years, or 20, hopefully 20, hopefully a shorter period, are very, very dangerous. And the question is, how do we protect the people through processes that they are not always at their power to influence, that they are dangerous to them as well in the short run, but hopeful in the long run? I think that's the balance act I'm looking for. And I feel frustrated because I want to be led by a Palestinian liberation movement on this. I don't want to be part of the people who lead it. I'm not going to seek such a position. I think the whole failure of the liberation of the so-called peace orthodoxy was it never allowed the Palestinian to lead the way on how to solve the issues of historical Palestine. I want the Palestinians to lead it, but I want to comment on the responsibility that goes with it, not just for military successes, but also for the fate of the people themselves, and the fact that there is this ruthless, racist, supremacist state of Israel is a fact. And you have to take into account what the state will do when you do certain things. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do them. But you cannot ignore the price that people would pay in the name of that doesn't matter because it contributes to the longer liberation movement. I'm sorry, I don't come from this perspective. I care about people. I don't care only about big ideas. I care about people, and some of the people like you, I know personally some of the people who are affected by it. So, but for the last bit that you were saying, I as an historian, I know that decolonization is a messy process. It's a very messy process. It's not a pharmaceutical transition from the colonizer to the colonized. It's messy. It always has, unfortunately, violent stages. But it does have the potential. I'm not sure it will, but it has the potential of building or leading to something different. Something different that I don't know if Israeli, maybe I exaggerated in Berkeley when I said millions of Jews. I have no idea how, and I don't care, by the way, how many Israeli Jews today would like to live in a decolonized, liberated Palestine. I really don't care. I do still think that many of them will, but that's not a very important prediction of mine. More important is to say I don't really care. It's not a condition, not a precondition for me. But I do think that, yes, this decolonization, the implosion of Israel from within, what you talked about, the international community, the continued struggle, definitely the continued struggle, including the continued armed struggle of the Palestinians, all of it, it's not one factor. All of these are factors that accelerate the decolonization, the end of the Zionist project. The end would leave a vacuum. Vacuum is going to be filled with something. And I think it can be filled with, reconnecting Palestine to the Arab world, turning Palestine into a factor that helps the Arab world to deal with its issues, because there's such a brilliant human capital there that can help to do this. I mean, all this building on models that you have written about in the past and so on. I mean, this is not just a utopian kind of analysis. I really use history as a source of inspiration, because one of the things, and with this I would end, one of the things I suddenly realized when I talk to people in the West, in particular, in the global North, all their historical examples that they feel can inspire a decolonized Palestine or a better future, they all come from the West. They all come from European history. And I say, I'm sorry, we have other resources. We have other reservoirs of good ideas in the past that can inspire us for building a different state system, a different relationship between communities and interrelations between human beings. It's not all there in the wisdom of the Enlightenment and the anti-Enlightenment and all these periods of Western philosophy and historical experience. And I think it's important to engage also the young generation with reading about it and using it as a proud heritage that has something to teach us about both the methods and the ways for decolonization, but also beginning to envisage what will come afterwards.